Hi guys, chapter 8 time. I'm going to just combine all of chapter 8 into one single video, and that's it for the course and for the term work stuff. So submit it at the end of the week, and then next week will be your CPT. Okay, so we're just talking a little bit about finance and money, a term called compounding interest. So interest is money you make. If you're putting money in an investment, you hope to earn interest to make your money grow. If you borrow money for a loan or whatever, the bank or whoever you borrow from charges interest, so you have to pay back more than you originally borrowed. Okay, so the first section is determining future value. Just a few terms that you need to be familiar with before we can continue. And these are called it's compounding interest, so these are called compounding periods. So when a question says annually, it's once a year, semi-annually, twice a year, quarterly, just like 4 quarters, 4 times a year or every 3 months. Monthly is 12 times a year. There are 52 weeks in a year, and if you go bi-weekly, where most people get paid every 2 weeks, there's 26 of those in a year. Okay, so here's your future value formula. It's A equals P 1 plus I to the power of N. So let me just break down what each variable means. So A is the final amount or the future value. P is the present value or what you put in. It's also known as the principal. I is the interest rate expressed as a decimal, and you have to divide it by those compounding periods. So whatever the question is, you got to divide it by whatever's in there. And then N is the total number of compounding periods. So you take the number of years of the investment and you multiply it by the compounding periods. Okay, so we'll see what that looks like in our question. Okay, so I gave you a bunch of different scenarios, but it asks you to determine the future value in each case. So if I had $2,000 invested over 3 years at 6% interest compounded annually once a year. Okay, so we need to get the final amount. We put in 2,000. It's 1 plus the interest rate, 0.06 is 6%. Annually is divided by 1. That's going to cancel. It's the same thing. And because it's 3 years, we go to the power of 3. So on your calculator, some calculators will do this automatically and easily. If not, you got to go bed mass. So you got to do 0.06 divided by 1, 0.06 plus 1, power of 3. That's my power button. Could also be an X to the Y or a Y to the X button, whatever your calculator is. Equals, then multiply it by 2,000 at the end, and you'll find out that there's 2382.03, round to the nearest cent. Okay, 7% quarterly. So what changes is the 0.07, the percentage changed, and quarterly is divided by 4. We're still doing it for 3 years, so this number was 3 years quarterly. 3 times 4 gives 12. Okay, same process. You'll find that $2,000 is $2462.88 by increasing the interest rate and increasing the compounding frequency. How about 8% monthly? Well, we take the 0.08. Monthly is 12. And the power of 36 is if you do something for 3 years every month, 3 times 12 is 36. Okay, so when you bedmass it out, 25, 40, 47, and just verify that your calculator is getting those same numbers. Okay, 2 questions, page 468, number 2 and 5. That's for 8.2. The next section is 8.3, compounding interest determining the present value. So for these questions, we use this formula when the question says, what do I need to invest today to reach my goal of X number of dollars? Okay, so before we put in some money and we wanted to see what it would be in the future. Now, if you have a goal and you need to put money in today, the formula kind of works backwards and shows you what to do. Okay, so it's the same formula. P and A switch places. Okay, so P is, we're going to calculate that present value. A is that final amount that you need. And the only difference is it's the power of negative N. Everything else works the exact same. Okay, so here's your example, what it's going to sound like, what it's going to look like. An investment earns, sometimes percentages, it's not 6%, 7%, 8%, it's decimal percentages. So these come up. All you do is to turn this into a decimal, you divide by 100. Okay, so it's compounded semi-annually twice a year. Determine how much money must be invested today to have $8,000 in 5 years. Okay, so if that's your goal, $8,000 in 5 years, you need to know how much to put in today. It's a lot less than 8,000. Let's see how it works. Okay, so to get the present value, you're going to put in the 8,000, which is your goal, 1 plus. That's 7.75 as a decimal. Semi-annually is twice a year. And if I do it twice a year for 5 years, 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, so that's how you get that. So simply on your calculator, 0.075 divided by 2 equals plus 1 equals, you got to do the brackets first, power negative 10 multiplied by 8,000. You'll see if you put 5469.90, you'll get $8,000 in 5 years. Okay, so very similar. Try those out, submit it when you're done. Just a few questions, 476, 2, and 6. That's 4 questions for chapter 8. Just basically gave you the basics of chapter 8. And that's it. That's it for the course. CPT to follow next week. Okay? Hope everybody's well, and we'll talk soon.